G'day. Today I'm continuing on with the Taylor Hobson rotary angular thingy what's-it. Today's video is about machining this one and its counterpart, that one. And this one's, the groove is finished machined. This one needs a little bit of trimming, but I won't bore you with that. And going from there. This is my setup for machining these two grooves. They're really critical, I guess, to the overall success of the project. And you know, until I get these done, I can't do all the other bits. So this is where I'm starting. So I've got my angle plate set up. I've got a stop here, and what I did was I put this part up and I sort of measured up where this was. The intent was to use this 5-inch cutter to take this, put this groove in anyway, and then step down and put the next one in. So instead what I did was I put the cutter in, put this piece up, and then sort of fitted that till it was round about snug. Now exactly where this radius is doesn't matter so much as the fact that this one and this one are concentric. So by doing it this way, I can come in, put the radius in, and then I can come back, drop down the required amount, and then come in again. This is the setup I'm using to put the cylindrical surface on this swivelly bit. I never have come up with a good name for this part. I've trammed that in, so that's flat, and so that means that this is perpendicular to the axis of the mill, so this surface here is going to be, the axis is going to be perpendicular to this surface here. This is my larger boring head. I've got a couple of boring heads actually, and this one's a Hannon Kolb. It's so old that it hasn't got it's a boring and facing head, but it hasn't got the facing feature that the modern ones have. So this could well be something like 50 to 70 years old, I'd imagine, or more. However, I'm just basically cleaning this up. I know that the groove is nominally 5 inches. I don't know what this is, so I'm going to just basically clean this up, try it for size, and when I get a nice fit, that's where I'll stop. This is down to about where I want it, possibly just a smidge over, but that's all right because I dare say I'll be polishing that and doing some other things to it, so we'll see how that all sits in. The reason I went for the trial fit and see method was that the centre of this circle is out here somewhere, and so trying to measure a diameter, trying to work out where the centre is a problem. Now, while thinking about this and what a silly way it was to do things, I realised that what I should have done was actually strapped a plate, 6mm would be fine, of aluminium or something like that behind here, and that way it would give me a centre point, and it also give me a proper diameter to measure. This is one of the more interesting setups that I'm doing here. I've got my rotary table set up here, and I've centred on that, and then I've offset 4.3mm. Now the reason for that is that I took the coordinates of these 2 points here plus there, put that into my CAD package, and worked out where the centre was, and it's 4.3mm off this surface, and that's all right. That's I was expecting it to be about there. As an aside, to my surprise, the diameter here is a little bit under 5 inches, about 1/8 of an inch, but it still matches the other part. So it looks like the cutter I used for the other one wasn't 5 inches as it was marked. It was about 1/8 of an inch under that. So that's just something to bear in mind. You need to check these things. I've got my offset. I've picked up the centre of this part. That's what the tape is for. There's a mark on there showing where the centre axis is that way, and I know the other one is off of 4.3 here. I've actually got a sharpened or a pointed piece of rod in here to try and locate this. I'm actually run out of Z. I can't get my normal finding things in here, so I've just lined this up by eyeball on the mark there, and now I know where this is in respect to the axis of the rotary table, and I can then proceed to put that groove in there and the T-slot. This is the second part of that setup. I swung the head of the mill round 90 degrees, so it's now in a horizontal fashion. I've centered it on the part here. Because the center of rotation is 4.3 back, this should give me a constant depth groove all the way around. So I'm just going to take this, swing this round and take this down to the depth I want. I wanted to check that this surface was actually should we say concentric with the axis of the rotary table, and so one way of doing that is just to set up a dial indicator on the side here, and so as you can see I'm getting a little bit of twitch there, but it's within 0.03 of a millimetre. I'm happy with that. So that's just another way, and you could also set it up this way too. It's a little bit of fiddling around, but that's also a possibility. And here we go for the big one. I'm about to put the T-slot in here. Now this is a specially modified cutter, and I'll show you how I did that in a moment. But the base has been made concave so that as this thing is going around, it's not going to be fouling on the bottom of the groove here. So I'm hoping this all works. We'll just have to see. In order to cut this T-slot, what I'm going to do is set up my blank on a rotary table and do that. But I can't use an ordinary T-slot cutter because you might just be able to pick, there's a slight curve there. If I had a flat bottom cutter like this, it's going to bottom out, and as the cutter moves around the curve, I'm going to have stuff rubbing. So I've got to relieve the inside of that cutter. The plan I have for doing that is basically to mount the cutter in the lathe, and then using an angle grinder with a 100mm disc, and I'm using it that size because that's what I've worked out I need to do. I'm going to come up, and while the lathe is revolving, just gently, very gently, cup that out. I've removed the tool post so I don't have anything to snag on, to catch on, and I'll be wearing full PPE. I'll put some newspaper down here so I don't get grit on my ways, and we're just going to have to see how we go with this. That worked a lot better than I thought it might. I've picked up a little bit of colour here. It's a very pale straw. It actually looks worse on the camera. It looks a deep gold on the camera, but it's there. I haven't managed to blunt the cutter yet. I have got it dished in there. It's not quite to the tips. I might, once this cools down a little bit, I might have another go and just see if I can get that final thing there, but I am part way along the tooth, so it would cut and it would relieve itself, just perhaps not as well as I would have liked. But that's dished the end of the cutter, and that should, in theory, give me the ability to cut a groove where that bottom surface is 100mm in diameter. So proof is going to be in the pudding, whether I've dulled the cut or whether I've pulled the temper enough to cause problems or not. I'm not quite sure. So there it is, the circular T-slot groove. The dovetail cutter here, I just use that to put a bit of or break the edge, put a bit of a chamfer on the inside corner here, so that isn't as rugged. But I hope that's been of interest. Please spread the word, and we'll see you for the next one.